My husband told 12 people at dinner that a man who made $2 million a year deserved a wife who made more than $2,000 a month. His mother laughed into her wine, and Serena Blythe, the woman he had stopped hiding from me, rested her hand on his sleeve like she already had my seat. I did not cry. I placed my napkin on the table, saved the voice memo on my phone, and slipped my wedding ring into my purse. Julian thought my silence meant defeat. He had always thought that when he pushed the divorce papers toward me. His eyes were cold and bored, as if ending our marriage was no different from canceling an old subscription. Be reasonable, Nora, he said. You and I live in different worlds now. I looked at the papers, then I looked at him. Fine, I said. His smile came too fast. 2 hours later, after I walked out of the restaurant alone, my phone lit up with his message, "Don't contact me again." I stared at the words for 5 seconds, then I replied with one word, "Done." By 8 the next morning, Julian had called me 23 times. The restaurant had white tablecloths, low golden lamps, and waiters who refilled water before anyone had to ask. Julian had chosen it because he liked places where money whispered instead of shouted. His mother sat on his left. Serena sat on his right. I sat across from him, between his sister Claire and his uncle Martin, both of whom had spent the last hour pretending not to notice that Julian kept leaning towards Serena whenever she spoke. Serena wore a cream silk dress and a diamond bracelet I had never seen before. She laughed softly at every dry comment Julian made. She touched his sleeve when she wanted his attention. She called him Jules in front of his family. No one corrected her. Julian finally set down his wineglass and looked at me with the same expression he used on underperforming interns. "Nora, we need to discuss the practical side of this." "The practical side of what?" I asked. "His mother side," as if I was embarrassing everyone by needing the sentence finished. "The divorce," Julian said. The word landed in the center of the table. Claire froze with her fork halfway to her mouth. Uncle Martin looked down at his plate. Serena did not move at all. That was how I knew she had known before I did. I looked at my husband. We had been married for 6 years. I had paid our rent when he was studying for licensing exams. I had cooked rice and eggs in a studio apartment while he told me one day he would give me a life where I never had to worry about bills. I had sat outside hospital rooms with his mother. I had filled out forms for his first investor loan because he hated paperwork. I had signed the limited guarantee that helped him buy into his firm because he said it was temporary, because he said it was ours, because he said he could not do it without me. Now he sat under a lamp worth more than my monthly salary and looked at me like I was a mistake from his past. "Here?" I asked. His jaw tightened. "I thought it would be better with family present." Serena lowered her gaze, but not before I saw the faint curve of her mouth. Patricia Pierce, my mother-in-law, patted Julian's hand. "Your husband is trying to be civilized." "My husband is announcing our divorce over duck confit," I said. Claire coughed into her napkin. Julian's eyes sharpened. He hated when I made anything sound ridiculous. He had built his whole life around appearing serious. "Do not make this dramatic," he said. "We have grown apart." "No," I said. "You grew expensive." A small silence followed. Serena finally looked up. Julian leaned back in his chair. "This is exactly what I mean, that tone, that resentment. You have been stuck for years, Nora. You earn what, $2,000 a month at that community center?" "About that," I said. "I make $2 million a year." He said it quietly, but everyone heard. $2 million. Do you understand the gap, the people I meet, the circles I move in, the responsibilities I carry? I cannot keep explaining why my wife has no ambition." Patricia gave a little laugh. "Sweetheart, you know we never wanted to hurt you." That was a lie. Patricia had never minded hurting me. She only minded being blamed for it. Julian pushed a folder across the table. I did not touch it. "It is generous," he said. "You can keep your car. I will give you 3 months in the apartment to find another place. No spousal support fight, no public mess. You are giving me permission to keep the car I bought." His face flushed. Serena stepped in, voice smooth as cream. "Nora, I know this is painful, but Julian is trying to make sure you are taken care of." I turned to her. "And you are here as his public relations consultant." Her smile thinned. Julian's hand closed around his glass. "Do not attack Serena. She has nothing to do with this. She has her hand on your sleeve." Serena removed it. Patricia clicked her tongue. "This bitterness is why Julian cannot breathe in this marriage." I almost laughed. For 6 years I had made sure that man could breathe when his anxiety attacks started before investor meetings. I sat on the bathroom floor outside the locked door and talked him through breathing exercises. When his mother's mortgage payment bounced after his father died, I covered it and told Julian it was fine. When Claire needed money after her divorce, I sent it quietly because Julian was too proud to admit his family needed help when he had no capital for his partnership buy-in. I signed papers against the Hart House Trust, the one thing my grandparents had left me. I had been the heir in his life. He had mistaken me for furniture. I reached for the folder at last. I opened it slowly. The divorce agreement was thin, arrogant, and insulting. It listed the apartment as his residence. It listed my car as a marital asset he would allow me to retain. It made no mention of the limited guarantee, no mention of the automatic transfers to his mother's mortgage account, no mention of the emergency loan I had covered for Claire, no mention of the first $50,000 I had wired into his professional account under the label temporary household support. No mention of Serena. Julian watched my face, waiting for the tears. I gave him none. Instead, I turned my phone over under the table and checked the voice memo still recording. "Did your lawyer write this?" I asked. "Of course." "Then your lawyer is careless." His eyebrows lifted. "Excuse me." I closed the folder. "I accept the divorce." The table went still again. Patricia blinked. "You what?" "I accept." Julian stared at me. For the first time that night he looked uncertain. He had prepared for crying, begging, accusation, maybe even a scene that would let him play the exhausted husband in front of witnesses. He had not prepared for my agreement. Serena's fingers tightened around the stem of her glass. Julian recovered quickly. "Good, that is the mature response." "No," I said, "it is the final one." I stood. Patricia's voice rose. "Nora, sit down, we are not done." "I am." I took my coat from the back of my chair. Julian looked annoyed now. "Do not make me chase you through a restaurant." "Then do not chase me." His lips pressed into a thin line. "You will regret being difficult." I looked at him for a long moment. There was a time when a sentence like that would have made my stomach fold in on itself. I would have asked what he meant. I would have tried to soften him. I would have gone home and lain awake, wondering how to fix what I had not broken. That woman had been tired for a long time. Tonight, she finally stood up. I put my ring into the small inner pocket of my purse and left the restaurant. Outside, February air hit my face. It smelled like wet pavement and expensive cars. I walked 2 blocks before I let myself stop under a closed florist shop awning. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I opened my banking app first. The automatic monthly transfer to Patricia's mortgage account was scheduled for midnight. I cancelled it. The transfer to Claire's private school loan for her son was next. Cancelled. The payment for Julian's mother's supplemental medical policy. Cancelled. The household card that Serena had probably used to order that diamond bracelet from the boutique Julian pretended not to know. Frozen. Then I opened my email and searched for the bank representative who handled the limited guarantee renewal on Julian's partnership capital line. The message had arrived 3 days ago. "Dear Mrs. Pierce, as discussed, we require your e-signature for renewal of the spousal consent and collateral support document by Friday." Friday was tomorrow. I forwarded the email to my lawyer, Mara Reed. Then I typed one line: "Mara, I need to withdraw consent immediately." Her response came in less than 2 minutes. "I was hoping you would say that. Come in at 9. Only then did my phone buzz. "Julian, don't contact me again." I read it once. I thought of the restaurant, his mother's laugh, Serena's hand on his sleeve, the divorce papers that treated my life as loose change. Then I typed one word: "Done." I blocked nothing. I wanted every call to come through. I wanted to watch the exact moment he understood that I had taken him seriously. Julian's first call came at 7:42 a.m. I was standing in my kitchen with wet hair, spreading peanut butter on toast because I had slept only 3 hours and needed something in my stomach before meeting Mara. The phone vibrated across the counter. "Julian Pierce." I watched it until it stopped. The second call came before I finished my toast. The third came while I buttoned my coat. The fourth came as I locked my apartment door. By the time I reached the subway platform, there were 9 missed calls and 4 messages. "Nora, pick up. This is not funny. Did you cancel the transfer to my mother? Call me now." I put the phone into my pocket and stepped onto the train. People around me drank coffee, scrolled through news, held flowers, carried gym bags, lived ordinary lives. I stood between a nurse in blue scrubs and a college student with paint on her jeans, and I felt something strange move through my chest. Not happiness, not yet space. For years Julian's needs had entered every room before mine did: his schedule, his stress, his family, his image, his career. Even when he was not there, his life took up air. That morning on the train, my phone buzzing like an angry insect in my pocket, I realized I did not have to answer. A simple thing, a radical thing. Mara's office was on the 7th floor of a brick building above a bakery. She had been my lawyer for 2 years, though Julian did not know that. I had first met her when Patricia's mortgage company sent a confusing letter and Julian told me to handle it because you like small things. Mara had reviewed the papers and later told me gently that a woman who handled everyone's small things needed someone watching the large ones. She opened her office door herself. "You look like hell," she said. "Good morning to you too. Coffee, please." She glanced at my phone as it lit up again in my hand. "That him. Call number 14. Excellent, let it ring." I sat across from her desk while she poured coffee into a chipped mug that said "Ask me about my hourly rate." Mara was in her late 40s, sharp-eyed, with silver at her temples and no patience for theatrical men. She had reviewed my prenup, my trust documents, and every financial form Julian had ever asked me to sign. I gave her the divorce papers from the restaurant. She read the first page and laughed once. "Bold, that means bad, that means insulting." He said it was generous. Men call a lot of things generous when they are hoping women will not read. Page 2, she flipped through the agreement, her expression hardened. He omitted the guarantee, I noticed. He omitted the family transfers. Yes, he listed the apartment as his separate residence. I paid the first deposit. I know, we have that record. My phone rang again. Mara looked at the screen. 17. I let it go. She opened the email from the bank and read the renewal request. "Here is the pressure point," she said. "The capital line tied to his partnership buy-in, your guarantee expires unless renewed without your consent. The bank can require additional collateral or freeze the renewal depending on his firm's internal rules. His distribution may be restricted." So the calls are not about his mother. The first ones probably were, the later ones are about money with more zeros. I took a breath. "I do not want to ruin him just to ruin him," I said. Mara leaned back. "Withdrawing your consent to risk your property after he asked for a divorce is not ruining him, it is refusing to keep financing him. He will say I am vindictive. He announced your divorce at dinner with another woman touching him and his family laughing at your salary. True, let him use any adjective he wants." Mara turned her monitor toward me. On the screen was a formal letter she had already drafted. Notice of withdrawal of spousal consent and collateral support, notice of separation, notice to cease use of Harthouse trust assets in any renewal, extension, or representation of marital support. My throat tightened at the name Harthouse. My grandparents had bought that old 3-story brownstone 40 years ago, when the neighborhood had more boarded windows than cafes. They left it in trust to me before I married Julian. It was not a mansion, it was not some secret billionaire inheritance. It was a building with old pipes, rent-controlled tenants, and a stubborn roof, but it was mine. When Julian had needed credibility for his capital line, the bank had looked at his income projections and laughed politely. Then they looked at the Harthouse Trust and listened. I had signed a limited support document after he swore it would be temporary. "I just need time," he had said then. "Once I make partner, you will never worry again." He made partner. I worried more. "Send it," I said. Mara watched me carefully. "Once this goes out, he will escalate. He already told me not to contact him. That was before consequences." Still, Mara clicked send. My phone rang again. 20, she said. I almost smiled. At noon I went to work. The Westside Community Arts Center was a converted school building with uneven floors, bright murals, and a front door that stuck in cold weather. I handled part-time bookkeeping, grant receipts, class registration, and whatever else Helen, the director, needed. It paid $2,000 a month because non-profits ran on hope, coffee, and people doing more than their job descriptions. Julian hated the place. He called it my little craft basement, even though we had after-school programs, senior painting classes, legal aid clinics once a month, and a food pantry in the back room. I was setting up folding chairs for a financial literacy workshop when Helen came in carrying 2 boxes of donated markers. "You look too calm," she said. "I may be in shock, divorce shock or murder shock." "Divorce? Then I approve of calm. Murder causes paperwork." I laughed for the first time in 2 days. My phone buzzed again on the metal chair beside me. Julian. Helen looked at it. "Do you need to answer?" "No." "Good." The call stopped. A message appeared. "You had no right to interfere with bank matters." I stared at it. No right, not no reason, no right. I had signed the guarantee. I had risked my property. I had paid his family's bills. I had sat at that restaurant while he reduced my worth to a paycheck. But in his mind, the moment I stopped serving him, I was interfering. Another message came. My mother is calling me crying, you are being cruel. Then another, if this is about last night, we can discuss it like adults. Then another, do not make me come to your work. Helen read my face. He threatened to come here, he implied it. She set the markers down. Do you want me to call security? We do not have security. We have Earl. Earl was 72, taught pottery, and carried a wooden cane he called the Persuader. Let's not start there, I said at 2:15 p.m. Julian walked into the community center in a charcoal overcoat, looking wildly out of place between a children's mural and a bulletin board advertising free tax help. He spotted me by the registration desk. His face was pale with anger. Nora, Helen stood up from her office doorway. Can I help you? No, Julian said without looking at her. This is between me and my wife. I picked up my phone and started a video recording with the screen angled down. Julian, you asked me not to contact you. I said, please leave my workplace. His eyes flicked to the phone. Are you recording me? Yes, he lowered his voice. Do you have any idea what you did this morning? I respected your request. You contacted my bank. My attorney notified the bank that I would not renew my consent. His jaw clenched. You are playing with things you do not understand. No, I said, I finally understand them. A few parents waiting for the after-school class turned to look. Julian noticed. He always noticed witnesses. His shoulders shifted, his voice softened. Nora, come outside. We need to talk privately. No. His eyes flashed. For 1 second, the polished executive disappeared and the man from our old apartment looked out, the one who panicked whenever control slipped. You cannot just walk away from 6 years, he said. You announced the end of those 6 years over dinner. I was angry. You were prepared. His mouth closed. Serena called his phone. Her name lit up across the screen between us. He declined it too quickly. That hurt more than I expected, not because I wanted him back, because there had been a time when his phone lighting up with another woman's name would have made me search for explanations to protect myself from the truth. Now the truth stood in front of me wearing an expensive coat. Helen stepped closer. Sir, you need to leave. Julian looked at her then, really looked at the place where I worked, at the mismatched chairs, the donation jar, the old radiator hissing by the wall. His face filled with contempt. This is what you chose, he said to me. A room full of folding chairs over your marriage. No, I said, I chose myself over being laughed at. He flinched as if I had slapped him. Then my phone buzzed again. Not Julian. Mara, bank issued. Formal hold. His firm has been notified. Julian's phone rang immediately after. He looked down. His face changed. I knew then that the second crack had opened. He answered, turned away and said, this is Julian. The voice on the other end was too low for me to hear, but I watched his back stiffen. No, he said. That is not necessary. My wife and I are handling it. I looked at the recording screen on my phone. My wife, not ex-wife, not soon-to-be ex-wife, my wife, because suddenly my name had value again. He ended the call and turned back to me. Nora, he said, and now there was something almost like fear under the anger. What exactly did you send them? I picked up the folder beside me, everything with my signature on it. Julian followed me into the hallway despite Helen telling him not to. I did not speed up. I had learned during our marriage that moving quickly around an angry man could make him feel chased, and chased men loved to pretend they were victims, so I walked at a steady pace past the old trophy case, past the vending machine that only worked when kicked, past the bulletin board full of children's drawings. Nora, he said behind me. Stop. I stopped in front of the glass doors. Winter light came through pale and clean. Say what you came to say. He glanced toward the front desk where Helen stood with her arms crossed. Not here. You lost private conversation privileges when you brought divorce papers to dinner. His nostrils flared. Fine, you want an audience. You are making a mistake. Be specific. He looked stunned by the request. I know Mara Reed sent something to the bank, he said. Withdraw it. No, you do not understand the timing. There is a renewal package tied to my capital account. The hold creates internal review. Internal review creates questions. Questions create problems. That sounds difficult. His mouth tightened. Do not be childish. I am not the one who signed a divorce agreement and forgot to mention the documents attached to my property. I forgot nothing. Those documents are business matters. They use my consent. They are tied to my income. They are tied to my risk. He looked away first. That felt small, but I kept it. Julian had always won arguments by changing the scale. If I objected to a lie, he made it about his stress. If I asked about money, he made it about my lack of ambition. If I cried, He made it about my emotional instability if I went quiet. He called it maturity. Today I stayed on the point. He lowered his voice. Nora, I was angry last night. I should not have said the salary thing. You meant it. I was frustrated. You rehearsed it. His eyes hardened. Do you want me to apologize? No, that unsettled him again. What do you want? I want the divorce you asked for. He took one step closer. Then do not sabotage it. I am not sabotaging the divorce. I am refusing to finance your life after it. His phone buzzed. He looked down, ignored it, and tried a different tone. Soft Julian, dangerous Julian, the one who used to sit beside me on our thrift store couch and rest his head in my lap after a bad day. The one who knew how to make his voice low enough to pull old loyalty out of me. Come home tonight, he said. We can go through everything, just us. I almost saw the old room around us, the cheap lamp, the takeout cartons, his hand reaching for mine. Then I saw Serena's bracelet. No, Nora, I am not coming home. It is still your home. Yesterday it was your apartment and I had 3 months to leave. His face darkened. Helen opened the hallway door. Nora, do you need me? Julian turned toward her. This is none of your business. I lifted my phone again. Do not speak to her that way. He looked at the phone, then at me. You are enjoying this? No, I said. I am documenting it. That was when he finally left. He walked out into the cold, coat swinging, phone already at his ear through the glass. I saw him pacing beside a black car, one hand pressed to his forehead. Helen stood beside me. He is handsome, she said. I looked at her. In the way expensive knives are handsome, she added. I let out a breath that almost became a laugh. You okay? No. Good. Okay is overrated in emergencies. The rest of the workday passed in pieces. I entered receipts for clay supplies. I emailed a grant update. I explained to a grandmother that yes, she could register for watercolor even if she had never painted before. I watched Julian's missed calls climb to 31 at 6. I went to the apartment we had shared, not the penthouse Julian sometimes pretended it was. It was a 2-bedroom in a glass building. Downtown, expensive because everything downtown was expensive, but not grand. I had paid the first deposit from savings when Julian's credit was stretched thin. Later, when he made more money, he called it his place because the rent came from his account. That was Julian's favorite magic trick. When something began with my sacrifice and ended with his paycheck, he called it his. I took Mara's advice and brought Helen and Earl with me as witnesses. Earl wore his pottery apron and carried the persuader. Just in case, he said. I used my key. The apartment smelled different. Serena's perfume, it was subtle, floral, expensive. It sat above the familiar smell of Julian's coffee and cedar soap like a signature on stolen paper. Helen's eyes narrowed. She has been here. I nodded. I went straight to the bedroom. Her scarf was on my chair, the blue armchair from my grandmother's house, the one Julian had always called old-fashioned until Serena apparently found it useful. I folded the scarf and placed it on the bed. Then I packed, not everything, not yet, clothes, documents, the small wooden box of my grandmother's letters, my passport, tax records, bank statements, the hard drive in the back of my desk drawer. My hands shook only once. When I opened the closet and saw that half my hanging space had been cleared, not empty, cleared, my winter coats had been shoved into storage bags on the floor, 3 silk blouses I did not own hung in their place. Helen swore under her breath. Earl lifted his cane. Point me at him. No crimes today, Earl. I took photos, closet, scarf, bathroom counter, second toothbrush, makeup bag. Evidence did not need rage. Evidence needed light and angles. In the kitchen, I found a note on the counter, Julian's handwriting. Serena, use whatever you need, N will be gone soon, N. Not Nora, not wife, N. I photographed that too. Then I opened the cabinet where we kept household files. The top folders were gone. For a moment, cold moved down my spine. I searched again. Insurance, apartment lease, bank letters, partnership documents, old tax returns. The folders related to Julian's Capital line were missing. He had come for them, or Serena had. Either way, he knew enough to be afraid, but not enough to be careful because I had copies. I had always made copies. When you grow up with grandparents who lived through layoffs, hospital bills, and landlords who lied, you learn that paperwork is not clutter, it is memory with teeth. I closed the cabinet. Helen touched my arm. Did he take something important? He took paper. That sounds important. Not when I have scans. Earl smiled. That is my girl. My phone buzzed. This time it was not a call, it was a photo notification. Serena had posted a story, a glass of wine, a city view, Julian's hand visible in the corner, his wedding ring still on. The caption read, Some endings are just new beginnings. I stared at it. Helen leaned over my shoulder. Oh, I dislike her. I saved the screenshot, then I opened my message thread with Julian. For years it was full of reminders. Pick up your mother's prescription, dinner is in the fridge, I paid the contractor, your blue tie is at the cleaners, please sleep. Now his latest message sat beneath the one I had answered with done. You need to stop before you hurt yourself. I typed nothing. Instead I sent the screenshot to Mara. She replied within a minute. Good. Keep collecting. I looked around the apartment, at the marble counter I had wiped after Julian's late dinners, at the framed print I bought at a flea market because our first place had bare walls, at the chair with Serena's scarf on the bed beside it. I had thought leaving would feel like being cut open. Instead, it felt like walking out of a room where I had been holding my breath for years. Before I left, I placed the divorce papers on the kitchen counter. On top of them, I placed Serena's scarf. Then I took one last photo. Mara's office smelled like coffee, printer ink, and the cinnamon rolls from the bakery downstairs. I arrived at 8 the next morning with a suitcase, a hard drive, and a cardboard file box heavy enough to make my shoulder ache. Mara opened the box, saw the labeled folders, and looked at me with something close to admiration. Please tell me you have always been this organized. My grandmother believed a woman should know where every document is before she knows where the silverware is. Your grandmother was a genius. She also hid emergency cash in flour tins. Practical genius. We spread the papers across her conference table. Prenup, apartment deposit, receipt, bank statements from our first 2 years of marriage, copies of transfers to Patricia, copies of transfers to Claire, emails from Julian asking me to just sign this one thing, the original Harthouse Trust summary, the limited guarantee renewal notices, tax documents showing how often Julian deducted expenses tied to events I organized but never attended as a partner. Mara worked silently for almost 20 minutes, then she looked up. He built a very pretty tower, she said, and he labeled your bricks as his. I leaned back, exhausted. Can we undo it? We can separate what is yours, we can document what he used, we can stop future exposure, we can seek reimbursement where there is a basis. We can also make sure he does not paint you as a dependent spouse trying to extort him. He already started. Of course he did. Mara pulled one email from the stack. It was from 4 years earlier when Julian's firm invited him to buy into a higher partnership tier. He had sent it to me at 1:12 a.m. Nora, I know this looks scary, but it is standard. If we do not use Harthouse's support, I lose the chance. It is not like they will ever touch it. I just need your signature. Below that, my old reply. How long does the guarantee last? His answer, 3 years, maybe less. By then I will have enough capital on my own. I swear I will not ask again. Mara tapped the page. This is important. It proves he said temporary. It proves he understood it was your separate asset and that he needed your consent. I remembered that night too. Clearly, Julian pacing in the kitchen, me in an old t-shirt, sitting at the table with my laptop open, his face pale from fear, voice trembling when he said he could not stay average, could not miss this chance, could not be the man who almost made it. I loved him then. Or I loved the version of him who cried because he was scared, not the version who later laughed because I earned less. What happens if the guarantee is not renewed? I asked. Mara pulled up the bank letter. The bank may require him to post replacement collateral within 10 business days. If he cannot, the capital line goes into review. His firm may freeze distributions or bonus payouts until exposure is resolved. Can he lose his job? Not automatically, but if he misrepresented his collateral position internally, that becomes a firm issue. He would call that my fault. He can call rain your fault, it still gets him wet. I rubbed my eyes. Mara's voice softened. Nora, I need to ask something. Did you know about Serena before last night? I suspected. How long? 6 months. Mara waited. I opened another folder. Inside were screenshots. Serena texting Julian after midnight. Julian replying with heart emojis he had not sent me in years. Calendar entries for client dinners that matched hotel lounge receipts. A photo Claire accidentally sent to the family chat and deleted 2 minutes later, showing Serena at Patricia's birthday lunch, sitting beside Julian while I was supposedly too busy at work to come. I started saving things. When he changed his phone password, I said, I told myself I was being paranoid. Were you? No. Mara looked through the screenshots. This helps with narrative. It may not change no-fault divorce rules much, but it matters if he tries to claim you abandoned the marriage without cause. He asked for the divorce, in public. We have the recording. I took out my phone and played it. Julian's voice filled the room. I make $2 million a year. $2 million. Do you understand the gap? Mara closed her eyes. Briefly, then Patricia's laugh came through the speaker. Mara opened her eyes. They were colder now. We keep this. I do not want to become someone who leaks private humiliation. Keeping evidence is not leaking it. It gives us leverage if he lies. My phone rang. Julian again. I let it ring on the table. Mara looked at the screen. He is learning the difference between silence and power. After the call stopped, a message appeared. We need to meet alone. Another followed. This has gone far enough then. Another. My mother's payment failed. She is terrified. My stomach tightened. Patricia had hurt me. She had mocked me. But she was also 71 and anxious about losing her home. Old Nora rose in me automatically. Maybe I should cover one more month. Maybe this is too harsh. Maybe the divorce is between Julian and me, not his mother. Mara saw my face. No, she said. I did not say anything. You did not have to. His mother depends on that payment. His mother has a son who makes $2 million a year. I looked down at the table. That sentence should have been obvious. It was not. For years, Patricia called me when things went wrong because Julian hated family mess. She said he was too busy, too stressed, too important. I became the quiet solution. I paid, arranged, soothed, confirmed, picked up prescriptions, handled insurance, sat through repair appointments, and still at dinner she laughed when he said I was not enough. I put the phone face down. Send whatever comes next, I said. Mara nodded. Whatever came next was a formal divorce response, a demand for full financial disclosure, a notice preserving evidence, and a warning that any attempt to remove, alter, or conceal marital or trust-related records would be treated seriously. Mara also sent Julian's lawyer a copy of the apartment deposit receipt and a request for immediate access to retrieve remaining personal property. By noon, Julian stopped calling. Serena started. I did not answer her either. Her first message came at 12:18. Nora, this is getting ugly. Julian is under enormous pressure. Please do not punish him because you are hurt. I read it twice. Then I saved it. A second message came. You have no idea what his world is like. He needs a partner who can stand beside him, not someone who drags him backward. I saved that too. A third. If you cared about him, you would not damage his career. I typed one reply. Do not contact me again. Then I sent it. Serena did not answer, but 15 minutes later Julian did. You replied to her but not me. I smiled. Without meaning to. Mara raised an eyebrow. What? I think he just realized I can still type. Good, she said. Let him wonder why you chose not to. That afternoon I went to Hart House. The building stood on a corner in a neighborhood that had changed so much my grandparents would have stared at the coffee prices in disbelief. The brick was old, the front steps worn, the basement still smelled faintly of laundry soap and dust. 2 tenants lived upstairs. The ground floor had been vacant for months. Because I had not had the energy to decide what to do with it, I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. Sunlight came through tall windows. Dust floated in the air. This building had been called impractical by Julian, sentimental by Patricia, and underutilized by Serena in a comment she probably thought I did not hear. To me, it was the last place in my life that had never asked me to shrink. I walked through the empty ground floor and imagined tables, shelves, workshops, a place where women could bring documents they were afraid to read, a place where someone would explain bank forms before a husband said, "Just sign." My phone buzzed again. Julian. This time he left a voicemail. I played it in the empty room. His voice echoed softly against the old brick walls. Nora, call me back, please. The bank is misunderstanding the situation. My firm is asking questions. This is not just about us anymore. I looked around Hart House. He was right. It was not just about us anymore. It was about every year I had been useful in silence. It was about every signature he thought would always be waiting. It was about the difference between a wife and a resource. I deleted nothing. Julian's firm held its annual winter reception in a hotel ballroom with crystal chandeliers and flowers arranged so tightly they looked disciplined. I had attended 3 times as his wife. The first year, I wore a navy dress from a clearance rack and spent half the night helping a caterer find the event coordinator because Julian said I was good at practical things. The second year, I stood beside him while he introduced me to a client as Nora. She works part-time. The third year, he asked me not to come because it would be mostly industry people and I would be bored. This year, I received an invitation from the firm's compliance office, not as Julian's wife, as a party connected to a collateral review. Mara told me to attend. Be polite, she said. Say very little, listen carefully. If he approaches you, do not go anywhere private. Should I dress like myself or like the wife he wanted? Mara looked at me over her glasses. Dress like the woman who owns the signature he needs. So I wore a black dress I bought 4 years earlier and never had the confidence to wear, simple fitted, long sleeves, my grandmother's pearl earrings. My wedding ring stayed in a small envelope in Mara's safe. When I arrived, heads turned for the wrong reasons first, recognition, surprise, whispers moving faster than waiters. Julian stood near the bar with Serena and 2 men from his firm. Serena wore red, of course she did, she saw me first, her smile faltered, then returned sharper. Julian turned for 1 second, he forgot to look bored, then he excused himself and crossed the room with controlled strides. What are you doing here? He asked. I was invited. By whom? Compliance. His face tightened. Serena appeared beside him before I answered anything else. Nora, she said, voice sweet. This must be uncomfortable for you. Not as uncomfortable as using company events to audition for someone else's marriage. Her smile froze. Julian looked around. Lower your voice. My voice is low. You should leave. Then ask compliance to uninvite me. He leaned closer. Do not embarrass yourself. I looked at him, at his perfect tie, his perfect haircut, his perfect life cracking just enough that he could hear it. Julian, I said quietly, you humiliated me in front of your family. Do not confuse my refusal to scream with a willingness to disappear. His eyes searched my face for the first time in years. He seemed to be looking for the woman he used to know and finding someone else. A man approached us. Mrs. Pierce, MS Hart. I said, I am using my name again. The man nodded smoothly. MS Hart, Daniel Hayes, Northbridge Bank. We have corresponded. Julian's hand flexed at his side. Daniel, he said, this is not the place. Daniel Hayes was in his 50s, silver-haired, with the careful manners of someone who had ruined people's mornings professionally. I agree, but since all relevant parties are present, I wanted to confirm that tomorrow's meeting remains on schedule. It does, I said. Julian turned to me. What meeting? Daniel looked between us. The collateral review meeting. My attorney will attend with me. I said. Julian's jaw moved once. Nora, may I speak to you for 1 minute? No. A few people nearby had stopped pretending not to listen. Serena touched Julian's arm again, but this time he pulled away. Small crack. I filed it away. Across the room, one of the firm's senior partners, Elaine Voss, watched us with an unreadable expression. I recognized her from holiday cards in Julian's stories. He admired her because she could cut people apart using only questions. She came over. Julian, she said. MS Hart. I nodded. MS Voss. Her eyes moved to Serena, then back to me. I understand there is a documentation issue. Julian laughed lightly. Temporary, personal matter spilling over where it should not. No, I said. The word cut through his laugh. Elaine's gaze settled on me. I continued, keeping my voice calm. It is not a documentation issue, it is a consent issue. I am no longer willing to provide collateral support through my separate trust property for Mr. Pierce after he requested a divorce. Julian's face went still. Serena's lips parted. Elaine looked at Julian. You requested a divorce. He smiled. Too late. Elaine, this is not relevant. It is if ongoing representations to the bank assumed spousal support. It was a private conversation. I opened my purse, took out my phone and placed its screen down in my hand. I have a recording of the dinner where the divorce was presented. Julian's eyes flashed. You recorded my family. I recorded myself being handed divorce papers while you discussed my salary. The nearest conversations died. Elaine's expression did not change, but her voice cooled. Julian, I suggest you avoid further discussion tonight. He looked furious, not ashamed. Furious, that mattered. A man ashamed of hurting you looks inward. A man furious at consequences looks for someone to punish. Serena stepped in, voice low. Nora, surely you do not want to make this public. I turned to her. You made your caption public. Color rose in her face. Elaine looked at Serena. Caption. Serena gave a small laugh. It was nothing. Daniel Hayes said nothing, but I saw him take mental notes. The ballroom lights sparkled above us. Waiters moved with trays of champagne. Somewhere near the stage, a jazz trio played something soft and expensive. Julian stood in the middle of his world, and for once, I was not standing behind him making it easier. I was standing across from him, holding my own name. Elaine excused herself first. Daniel followed. The people nearby resumed their conversations with the strained energy of those who had witnessed something better than the event program. Julian looked at me. You have changed, he said. No, I said, I stopped translating myself into something convenient for you. You think this makes you strong, I think leaving does. His mouth twisted. You do not even know what you are leaving. You think $2,000 a month and some old building make you independent. There it was again, the number, the measurement, the little box he needed me inside. I took one step closer, not enough to be intimate, only enough that he had to hear me. You make $2 million a year, I said. Why was your mother's mortgage paid from my account? His face flickered. Why did your sister call me, not you, when her son's tuition was overdue? Nora, why did you need my signature for your capital line? Stop. Why did you bring divorce papers to dinner before securing the renewal? Serena went very still. She had not known. That was obvious. Her eyes moved from him to me, recalculating. Julian saw it and hated me for that too. You are trying to humiliate me, he said. No, I said. I am returning your numbers. I left before he could answer. In the elevator, my knees finally shook. I held the rail and breathed through it. When the doors opened in the lobby, my phone buzzed. A message from Julian. You had no right to say those things in front of my colleagues. I stared at it. Then another arrived. You are acting like a different person. I typed nothing. Outside, the city was sharp with cold. I walked past the valet stand, past the black cars, past men in coats waiting for drivers. My phone buzzed again. Serena, what exactly did you mean by capital line? I almost laughed. The new beginning had begun to ask questions. The mediation room had beige walls, a round table, and a box of tissues placed exactly in the center. As if everyone expected women to need them, I sat beside Mara. Julian sat across from me with his lawyer, Grant Ellison, a polished man with a soft voice and predatory eyes. Julian wore a navy suit and no wedding ring. He noticed me noticing. Serena was not supposed to be there, but she waited in the lobby behind glass, pretending to answer emails. Her red coat was impossible to miss. Mara leaned toward me. Remember, short answers, let them talk. Grant began with sympathy. Everyone recognizes that this is an emotionally charged time, he said. Mr. Pierce wants to resolve matters with dignity. Mara smiled. Excellent, we like dignity. Julian avoided looking at me. Grant slid a revised settlement proposal across the table. Mara picked it up, read for 20 seconds and laughed, not loudly. Just enough. Grant's smile thinned. Is there an issue? There are several. Let us start with the offer. It is a fair lump sum given the length of the marriage and the party's income history, $50,000. Mara said, in exchange for my client waiving claims connected to household reimbursements, support transfers, apartment deposit contributions, and any trust-related exposure. That is not a settlement, that is a coupon. Julian's eyes lifted. Do you want money? He asked me. Is that what this is? Mara touched my arm lightly under the table. I answered anyway. I want accuracy. He scoffed. You want revenge? I wanted a husband who did not make a dinner speech about my paycheck. We are past that. Grant cut in. Mr. Pierce acknowledges that words were said in a painful context, but we are here to divide marital matters, not relitigate a dinner. Great, Mara said. Let's divide marital matters. She opened our first binder. I had labeled it household transfers. Mara turned pages one by one. Monthly payments from MS Hart's separate account to Patricia Pierce's mortgage servicer, total over 6 years, $186,000. Julian looked at the page as if it had appeared from another universe. That was family help, he said. From whose account? Mara asked. He said nothing. She turned another page. Supplemental medical insurance payments, $32,000, emergency plumbing repairs on Patricia Pierce's property, $11,000, tuition-related transfers to Claire Maddox, formerly Claire Pierce, $48,000. Grant frowned. We will need to verify these. Already verified, Mara said. Bank records attached. Julian looked at me. Then I could read the accusation in his face. You kept score? Yes. Finally, Mara opened the second binder. Apartment deposit, first month, broker fee, paid from MS Hart's premarital savings, total $19,000. Mr. Pierce's proposed agreement lists the apartment as his residence and gives MS Hart 3 months to vacate. We reject that framing. Grant's pen moved quickly. Mara opened the third binder. Now the Hart House Trust. Julian sat back. That is not marital property. No, Mara said. It is not, yet your client has repeatedly represented its support in connection with his capital line. Grant looked at Julian. There it was, a small shift. Lawyers dislike surprises from their own clients. Julian's expression stayed controlled. But a muscle moved in his jaw. Mara placed the email on the table. The one where Julian had promised he would not ask again after 3 years. Grant read it. His face changed very slightly. "Mr. Pierce," he said carefully, "we should discuss this privately." "No," Julian said. "We can discuss it here. Nora knows what she signed." "I do," I said. He looked at me. "I never forced you." "No, you cried." His face flushed. The room went quiet. I had not planned to say it, but once it was out I did not regret it. Julian's eyes burned. "Excuse me. You cried in our kitchen and told me you would lose your chance if I did not sign. You said it was temporary. You said we were building something together." His voice dropped. "We were." "No," I said. "I was building. You were collecting the plaque." Mara's lips pressed together, but she did not stop me. Grant cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should take a short break." Julian stood too fast. "Fine." He left the room through the glass wall. I saw Serena rise from her chair. She moved toward him, but he brushed past her into a side hallway. She stood there, red coat bright as spilled wine. Realizing she was not part of the conversation that mattered, that gave me no joy. It did give me clarity. Mara closed the binder. "How do you feel?" "Like I swallowed glass." "Good, that is better than swallowing silence." When the men returned, Grant looked less confident. He folded his hands. "My client is prepared to increase the settlement offer." "No," I said. Everyone looked at me. Mara did not. She knew. "I am not interested in being paid to keep his story clean." I said, "I want the divorce. I want my property separated. I want my name removed from every risk he carries. I want reimbursement requests reviewed. I want all remaining personal items returned. And I want all communication through counsel." Julian laughed under his breath. "You think you can just erase me?" "I am not erasing you. I am removing your access." His eyes held mine. "You will regret this when the anger fades." "The anger is not guiding me." "What is?" I thought of the restaurant, of the word done, of 23 calls, of Hart House sunlight on dusty floors. "Memory." I said. "The mediation did not resolve that day." "Of course it did not. Men like Julian do not surrender during the first meeting. They retreat, rename the battlefield, and look for softer ground." His softer ground was family. That evening, Patricia called me from a number I did not recognize. I was in Hart House, sweeping dust from the ground floor, when I answered because I thought it might be a tenant. "Nora," she said, already crying, "how can you do this to me?" I closed my eyes. "Patricia, I treated you like a daughter." That was so false it made the room feel colder. "No," I said, "you treated me like a daughter-in-law you could invoice." She gasped. "After all, I accepted you despite your background. My background paid your mortgage." Silence, then her voice changed, sharper, familiar. "Julian was right. This bitterness is ugly. You could never stand that he outgrew you." There it was, not fear, not gratitude, status. "Even now, ask your son to pay your mortgage." I said, "He is under pressure because of what you did. He makes $2 million a year. He has obligations. So did I. I am done with them." She inhaled sharply. "You cannot just stop being family." "Julian filed for divorce. That is between you and him." "No," I said. "You laughed at the table." She had no answer. When I ended the call, my hands were shaking, but I did not cry. The next morning, Patricia posted on Facebook, "Some women show their true character when they can no longer benefit from a successful man." I saved the screenshot. Claire liked it. Serena commented with a praying hands emoji. I saved that too. By noon, Mara had sent a formal notice reminding Julian's counsel that public disparagement could affect settlement posture. By evening, the post disappeared, but screenshots like memory had teeth. Patricia's house was larger than I remembered. Maybe because I no longer entered it carrying groceries, prescriptions, or guilt. It sat at the end of a quiet street, white columns in front, rose bushes cut down for winter. I had paid part of that roof. I had paid the emergency furnace replacement. I had paid the property tax installment Patricia claimed she would repay after Julian's bonus came in. She never did. Julian asked for the meeting through lawyers, then called it a family conversation, then insisted it would be better without attorneys. Mara said, "Absolutely not." So I arrived with Mara. Julian arrived with Grant. Patricia opened the door wearing pearls and a cardigan I had bought her for Christmas 2 years earlier. She looked past me at Mara. "Is this necessary?" "Yes," I said, her mouth pinched. Inside, Claire sat on the sofa, arms crossed. Uncle Martin stood near the fireplace, pretending neutrality. Serena was not there. That surprised me until I realized Patricia would still consider a mistress useful in theory but improper in her living room during a financial panic. Julian stood by the window. He looked tired, not broken, not humbled, just tired in a way he clearly believed should matter to me. It did not. We sat. Patricia began. I want to say first that emotions were high at dinner. Mara opened her notebook. Patricia looked irritated. Must she write everything? Yes, I said again. Julian rubbed his forehead. Mother. Just say what you need. Patricia shot him a look, then turned back to me. The mortgage payment failed. I received a notice. It was humiliating. I waited. She seemed to expect me to apologize to the notice when I did not. She continued. I understand you and Julian are having difficulties, but punishing an elderly woman is beneath you. Mara's pen paused. I leaned forward slightly. Patricia, for 6 years I sent money quietly because Julian asked me not to embarrass you. Her face changed. Claire looked at Julian. Julian said, Nora, I kept going. You told me I was family when the furnace broke. You told me I was family when your insurance lapsed. You told me I was family when Claire needed help. But at dinner, when Julian said I earned too little to stand beside him, you laughed. Patricia's cheeks reddened. That is not fair. No, it was not. Claire shifted. Mom did not mean it like that. I turned to her. You liked her post. Claire's mouth opened, then closed. Mara placed copies of the transfer summary on the coffee table. Patricia did not touch them. Grant did. Uncle Martin came closer and looked over his shoulder. Mara spoke calmly. These records show extensive payments from MS. Hart's separate account to obligations belonging to members of the Pierce family. We are not here to shame anyone. We are here to establish that MS Hart will not continue these payments. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. I had seen those tears before. They came fast when bills arrived and disappeared quickly when checks cleared. You would put me out of my home, she whispered. No, I said. Your son can keep you in your home. Everyone looked at Julian for one bright silent second. The family finally turned toward the man they had protected from inconvenience. Julian's face hardened. I am handling it. With what? Claire asked before she could stop herself. He looked at her. She looked away. There were cracks everywhere now. Patricia gripped the armrest. Nora, you cannot expect Julian to shoulder everything while his accounts are frozen. My accounts were never frozen when you needed me. That was different. You were his wife. And now he wants me gone. Patricia's voice sharpened. Because you let yourself become small. The room went cold. Julian said. Mother. But she kept going. You think I do not know what men like my son need? They need a woman who can host, speak, build connections. Serena understands his world. You hid in that little job and expected him to stay grateful forever. I looked at her. There it was, the family truth. Not that I had failed to love him, not that I had harmed him, not that I had taken too much. I had embarrassed the brand. Mara's pen moved. Julian closed his eyes. Grant looked like a man wishing for another room. I stood. Nora, Julian said. No, I said, this is useful. I needed to hear it clearly. Patricia seemed to realize she had gone too far, but pride held her upright. I only meant that marriage requires growth. I grew, I said. I grew tired. I picked up my bag. Mara gathered the papers. Julian stepped toward me. We are not done. Yes, I said. We are. Patricia stood too quickly. What about my payment? I turned at the doorway. Call your son. That should have been the end of the meeting. It was not. 3 hours later, I received a message from Claire. Mom's emerald earrings are missing. If you took them out of anger, return them before this gets worse. I stared at it in disbelief. Then Patricia texted, I do not want police involved, Nora, but I will protect my family. Mara, when I forwarded the messages, called me within 30 seconds. Did you take any jewelry? No. Did you ever buy her jewelry? Yes, the emerald earrings. Do you have proof, receipt, insurance appraisal, and photos from the Christmas I gave them to her? Good, send them. Also, do not respond. I sent the files. Mara was quiet for a moment, then she said, interesting. What? The appraisal lists the earrings under your name. I insured them before gifting them. Patricia never updated it. Even better, at 9:40 p.m. a police officer called to ask if I would be willing to answer questions regarding a reported theft. Mara took over by midnight. She had arranged for all communication to go through counsel. The next morning, Patricia's accusation became a problem she had not expected. Because the earrings had not been stolen by me, they had been pawned by Serena. The pawn shop was 3 blocks from Serena's apartment and 6 miles from Patricia's house. Mara got the information through the police inquiry faster than I expected. The shop owner remembered Serena because she had argued about the appraisal. She used her own driver's license. She signed the intake form. She claimed the earrings belonged to her late aunt. The emerald earrings I bought Patricia during the year Julian made his first million. I remembered that Christmas painfully well. Patricia had opened the box, looked at the earrings and said, "How thoughtful, Julian, did you help her choose them?" He had smiled and said, "Nora handles gifts. Nora handles gifts. Nora handles bills. Nora handles forms. Nora handles mess. Serena handled theft. Mara." And I met the officer at the station on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I wore jeans, a grey sweater, and the calmest face I owned. Patricia sat in the waiting area with Julian. Her eyes were red, but whether from crying or fury I could not tell. Serena arrived 10 minutes late in a camel coat and sunglasses. At a police station, Mara murmured, "Subtle." Serena removed the sunglasses when she saw us. Julian stood. "Serena, what is going on?" She looked at him, then at me, then at Patricia. "I do not know," she said. "This is absurd." The officer invited us into a small conference room because the matter had become tangled with ownership documentation, false claims, and a family dispute. Mara had warned me this was not a courtroom. It would not be dramatic in the way movies were dramatic. She was wrong. Sometimes a cheap conference room with fluorescent lights is more dramatic than any courtroom because no one has had time to rehearse. The officer placed copies of documents on the table. Mrs. Pierce reported emerald earrings missing from her home. Ms. Hart provided proof of purchase and insurance documentation. The pawn shop provided a record of sale by Ms. Blythe. Patricia turned slowly toward Serena. Serena laughed once. "This is a misunderstanding." Julian's face had gone blank. "Serena," he said, "tell me this is not true." She looked insulted by his tone. "I borrowed them." Patricia made a small sound. "Borrowed? You said I could look through your jewelry for the gala." "I said you could borrow pearls." Serena's eyes flashed. "You were not wearing them." The room stopped breathing. There it was. Not a denial, entitlement. Julian stared at her. I watched him understand something he should have understood months earlier. Serena had not loved his world because she loved him. She loved the doors, the watches, the wine lists, the whispered names, the family jewelry, the future she thought he could buy. He looked at me then. For one foolish second I thought he might apologize for believing I was the problem. Instead, his face shifted toward anger. "Did you set this up?" he asked me. I almost laughed. Mara did not almost laugh, she did laugh. "Mr. Pierce," she said, "are you asking whether my client forced Ms. Blythe to pawn earrings with her own identification?" His lawyer, who had come too, whispered, "Julian." But Julian's eyes stayed on mine. He needed me to be the villain. If I was not, then he had destroyed his marriage for someone who stole from his mother before the divorce papers were warm. "No," I said, "I did not set this up. I only kept the receipt." Serena turned on him. "You told me Nora was vindictive. You said she would try to make me look bad. I did not tell you to pawn my mother's earrings." He snapped. "They were insured under Nora's name anyway." Patricia gasped. That was the sentence that ended whatever kindness Patricia had reserved for Serena. "You knew," Patricia whispered. Serena realized too late what she had admitted. Julian sat down. The officer cleared his throat. "We will continue the inquiry, Mrs. Pierce. You will need to decide whether you wish to pursue a complaint regarding the sale." Patricia looked shattered. Not because she had wronged me, because the woman she had preferred had stolen from her. Mara gathered our papers. "We are done here," she said as I stood. Patricia reached for my sleeve. I stepped back. Her hand fell. "Nora," she said, "I did not know." That was the closest she had ever come to an apology. It still centered her knowledge, not my harm. "No," I said, "you did not want to know." Her lips trembled. Julian followed me into the hallway. "Nora, wait." Mara stopped. "No private conversation." Julian ignored her. "Please." The word landed strangely. Please had not been part of his language with me for a long time. I turned. He looked tired in a different way now, less polished, less angry, more exposed. "I was wrong about Serena," he said. "That is between you and Serena." "I was wrong about a lot of things. That is between you and your therapist." His mouth tightened. "Do you have to make everything cold?" "No, I learned from you." That hit. I saw it. He looked away. "I did not know my mother said those things to you." He said, "You were at the dinner. I mean before. You did not ask." He put a hand through his hair. "I thought you did not mind helping." "I minded being used. I never saw it that way." "I know." He stepped closer. Mara did too. "I panicked," he said, "when the bank called, when the firm asked questions. I felt like you were attacking everything I built." I looked at him for a long moment. "Julian, everything you built had exits labeled with my name. You just never planned for me to use one." He closed his eyes for the first time. He had no answer outside the station. Rain fell in fine silver lines. Mara opened her umbrella over us. "How are you?" she asked. "I keep waiting to feel triumphant. And, I feel tired. That is normal. Will it always feel this heavy?" "No," she said. "Eventually the weight becomes information." That evening, Julian sent one message: "I need to understand how we got here." I did not reply. He sent another: "Can we meet without lawyers?" I did not reply. Then just before midnight he sent a third: "I miss my wife." I stared at the words "my wife." He missed the woman who paid bills without making him feel indebted, the woman who remembered his mother's medication schedule, the woman who signed forms, the woman who stood at receptions and smiled when introduced as part-time, the woman who made his life frictionless. He did not miss me, he missed access. I turned off the phone and slept through the night for the first time since the dinner. The account book was not really a book, it was a spreadsheet, 3 binders, 2 hard drives, and my grandmother's old habit of writing important numbers by hand in a green ledger. I had started keeping it during our 2nd year of marriage after Julian forgot to repay me for his licensing course fees and then insisted I had offered. The word offered stayed with me. A woman can lose half her life to things men later describe as offers. So I wrote things down, not because I planned revenge, because I wanted proof I was not imagining the drain. On Thursday morning, Mara and I met Daniel Hayes at Northbridge Bank. The conference room had a long glass table and a view of downtown. Julian was already there with Grant, Elaine Voss, and another man from his firm named Robert Keane, who introduced himself as Risk Committee Chair. Julian did not look at me when I entered. That told me his lawyer had warned him. Daniel began. "We are here to confirm the status of the Hart House Trust support document connected to Mr. Pierce's capital line." Mara said, "MS Hart will not renew or extend consent." Robert Keane folded his hands. "MS Hart, were you aware that this could trigger a review of Mr. Pierce's partnership capital account?" "Yes." Julian looked at me then, hurt, anger, disbelief. I almost heard the thought, "How could you?" The answer was simple: because he had asked me to disappear. Daniel reviewed the documents, the original guarantee, the expiration clause, the email trail, my notice of withdrawal, the divorce filing, the revised settlement proposal that omitted the guarantee entirely. Elaine Voss read every page. Julian shifted once when Daniel reached the email where he promised not to ask me again. Robert turned to Julian. "Did you disclose to the firm that renewal required MS Hart's voluntary consent after a marital separation?" Julian's face tightened. "The separation happened suddenly." I looked at him. The lie was so clean. Mara opened her folder. The divorce papers were prepared before the dinner on February 3rd. The metadata on the draft provided by Mr. Pierce's counsel indicates the document was created 10 days earlier. Grant closed his eyes briefly. Elaine looked at Julian. 10 days. He said nothing. Daniel continued. "Without replacement collateral, Northbridge will not renew the line on its existing terms. We can provide a short cure period." "How short?" Robert asked. 10 business days. Julian's hands closed on each other. Elaine asked, "What amount must be covered?" Daniel gave the number. The room went very quiet. It was more than the apartment, more than Patricia's mortgage, more than Julian could casually move without selling investments he had already leveraged for years. Julian made $2 million a year and spent like the number was proof of permanence. He leased cars, paid club dues, funded appearances, carried family obligations through delays and refinances, rolled one success into the next opportunity. He was not broke, he was exposed. There is a difference. But exposed men often feel poorer than poor men because they have farther to fall. Robert turned to Julian. "Can you satisfy this without the line?" Julian's voice was controlled. "I can manage it." Elaine's expression suggested she did not believe him. Mara then placed the account summary on the table. "There is another issue. Mr. Pierce's proposed divorce agreement characterizes MS Hart as having contributed minimally to the marital household. That is false. We are providing these records to correct any narrative that she has been financially dependent without contribution." Grant said, "This is not necessary for the bank." "No," Mara said, "but it may be necessary for everyone else." Elaine took the summary. She read the first page, then the second. Her eyes flicked to me, not pity, recognition that almost undid me. I had not known how badly I needed one person in Julian's world to look at the numbers and understand they were not small. $2,000 a month had sounded small when Julian said it at dinner, but $2,000 a month over years, directed carefully into gaps he refused to see, became roofs, medication, tuition, deposits, repairs, dignity for his family, calm for his life. Small money can carry large men. Julian's voice cut through the silence. You did not have to bring my family into this. I looked at him. You brought my salary into it. He flinched. Elaine closed the file. Julian, the firm will require full disclosure of any personal obligations tied to the capital line. Pending review. Bonus distribution may be delayed. His face paled. Elaine, that is unnecessary. It is policy. You know my performance. I know your performance. I am now questioning your judgment. That sentence did what no accusation of mine could do. It wounded the part of him he respected most. The meeting ended with dates, deadlines, and formal language. Julian avoided me until the lobby, then he caught up. Nora, Mara turned. Mr. Pierce, I am speaking to my wife. No, I said, you are speaking to your opposing party. His mouth twisted. Is that what I am now? Yes. He stared at me. I do not recognize you. You never did. That stopped him. For 6 years I had wanted him to see me. Now that he was looking, it was too late. He lowered his voice. Do you think you are innocent in this? No. The answer surprised him. I continued. I trained you to expect me to fix things. I called it love. That was my mistake. His anger faltered. I did love you, he said. I know. Then why are you doing this? Because I loved myself too late, but not too late to leave. He looked away, and for a second I saw the boy from the kitchen again, terrified of missing his chance. But he was not that boy anymore, and I was not the woman who would sign away her safety to calm him. He said, Serena is gone. I did not respond. I ended it. That does not restore me. I know, you do not. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small velvet envelope, my wedding ring. I had left it with Mara. She must have included it among property items by mistake. Or perhaps Julian had taken it from the apartment before. No, the envelope was different. He opened it. Inside was his ring. I took mine off, he said. I looked at the ring, plain platinum. I had chosen it because he said he did not care about jewelry, only what it meant. Once that had seemed romantic, now it seemed like another thing he let me carry. Good, I said. His face changed. Good. You should not wear vows you broke. He closed the envelope slowly. Mara touched my elbow. We left him there in the lobby of the bank that finally knew my name. The internal hearing was not supposed to include me for long. Elaine Voss requested my presence only to verify documents, confirm dates, and answer questions regarding the Hart House support. Mara said we would attend for that portion and leave. Julian probably thought the same. He underestimated the danger of dates. People remember emotions differently. Dates do not care. The hearing took place in a boardroom on the 36th floor of Julian's firm. Floor-to-ceiling windows, grey carpet, black leather chairs. A table so long it made everyone look like they were negotiating a ceasefire. Julian sat on one side with Grant and an internal counsel. Serena sat near the far end with her own attorney, no longer red-coated, no longer glowing. She looked smaller in navy wool. I sat beside Mara. Elaine chaired the meeting. Robert Keane was there, so were 2 other partners, a human resources officer, and a compliance director named M.S. Calder. Elaine began with a summary. This review concerns disclosures related to Mr. Pierce's capital line, representations regarding collateral support, potential conflicts involving M.S. Blythe, and conduct that may expose the firm to reputational or financial risk. Julian's face stayed unreadable. Serena's fingers picked at a thread on her cuff. For the first hour, the questions were technical. When did the guarantee begin? Who knew? What did Julian disclose? When was renewal required? Had he told the firm about the divorce before the bank notice? Had Serena worked on materials or communications connected to Julian's partnership profile while in a personal relationship with him? Julian answered carefully. Serena answered less carefully. Then M.S. Calder asked about the winter reception. M.S. Blythe, did you publicly represent yourself in any capacity related to Mr. Pierce's personal life? Serena stiffened. No. Mara slid a printed copy of the Instagram story across the table. Some endings are just new beginnings. The image of the wineglass city view, and Julian's hand looked ridiculous under fluorescent boardroom lights. Serena's face reddened. That was personal, Elaine said. That is the point. Julian looked at the photo as if seeing it for the first time. Maybe he had not noticed his hand in the frame. Maybe he had. Maybe men like Julian were so used to being centered that they forgot every visible piece of them could become evidence. M.S. Calder turned to me. M.S. Hart, did Mr. Pierce tell you before the dinner on February 3rd that he intended to divorce you? No. Did he provide divorce papers at that dinner? Yes. Did he make statements regarding your income? Yes. Mara nodded. Once I took out my phone, connected it to the small speaker Mara had brought and played the recording. My husband's voice filled the boardroom. I make $2 million a year. $2 million. Do you understand the gap? No one moved. Then Patricia's laugh. Then Julian again. I cannot keep explaining why my wife has no ambition. Serena stared at the table. Julian closed his eyes. I stopped the recording before my own voice accepted the divorce. That part was mine. Elaine's expression was carved from stone. Ms. Calder asked, Mr. Pierce, did you consider that initiating divorce while relying on spousal collateral support created a disclosure issue? Julian opened his eyes. I did not expect Nora to weaponize personal matters. The word hit the room. Weaponize. Mara leaned forward. Ms. Hart did not weaponize anything. She declined to renew risk after Mr. Pierce ended the marriage. That is not aggression, that is consent. Elaine looked at Julian. Consent you no longer had. He said nothing. Then Serena made the mistake that changed the room. Julian told me the marriage was already over, she said. He said Nora understood the arrangement. I turned my head slowly. Julian did too. Serena seemed to realize she had stepped into something, but panic pushed her forward. He said she knew they were only together on paper. He said the financial things were old formalities. He said she would sign because she always signed. There it was, the whole marriage in one sentence. She would sign because she always signed. I felt Mara's hand still beside me. Julian looked sick. Elaine wrote something down. Robert Keane leaned back, eyes cold. Ms. Calder asked, Mr. Pierce, did you make that statement? He looked at Serena. I do not remember. Serena gave a sharp laugh. Do not do that. Her attorney touched her arm. She shook him off. You told me she was harmless, Serena said. You told me she did not understand money. You told me she was grateful for whatever you gave her. The boardroom went so silent I could hear the air conditioning. I looked at Julian. He did not deny it. That hurt. Even after everything, it hurt, not because I was surprised, because hearing contempt spoken plainly has a way of cutting through the scar tissue and finding living skin. Elaine asked for a break, Mara. And I stepped into the hallway. I walked to the window and looked down at the city, tiny cars moving like dark beads below. Mara stood beside me. Do you need a minute? No, you are allowed. I know. Behind us, through the glass wall, Julian sat with his head bowed while Grant spoke urgently beside him. Serena faced the opposite direction, arms crossed, mouth tight. Two people who had mistaken cruelty for chemistry now sat on different islands of blame. I thought of the restaurant. I thought of Dunn. Then I thought of something my grandmother once told me while teaching me to balance a checkbook. Never let a person who spends you convince you that you are cheap. At the time, I thought she meant money. Now I knew she meant everything. We returned to the room. Elaine delivered the preliminary decision. Julian's bonus distribution would remain frozen pending full resolution of the collateral issue. His partnership status would be reviewed by the risk committee. Serena was placed on administrative leave pending investigation into conflict disclosures, misuse of company expense channels, and conduct that exposed the firm to reputational risk. Serena turned white. Julian stared at Elaine. After everything I have brought this firm, Elaine's voice was even. That is why we expected better judgment. His eyes moved to me. For 1 second I saw the old instinct rise in him. Blame Nora, blame the woman who kept records, blame the wife who stopped being quiet. But there were too many witnesses now too. Many dates, too many documents. Blame could not breathe in that room. After the hearing, Julian followed me to the parking garage. Mara stayed close. Nora, he said. I stopped beside Mara's car. He looked worn down, tie loosened, hair no longer perfect. I never meant for it to become this, he said. What did you mean for it to become? He swallowed. I waited. Clean, he said finally. I thought it could be clean. You mean quiet? His face twisted. You would get some money, he said. I would keep things stable. No one had to know the private details. No one had to know how much you used me. I did not think of it as use. That does not make it less true. He looked toward the concrete wall, then back at me. I was ashamed, he said. That stopped me. He continued, voice low. At first, I was ashamed that I needed your help. Then later, I was ashamed that you had seen me need it. Serena did not know that version of me. With her, I could be rich, new. The honesty was small and ugly. I appreciated it more than his excuses. You did not want a partner, I said. You wanted a witness who remembered less. His eyes reddened. Maybe. Mara shifted beside me, giving me space but not leaving. Julian took a breath. I am sorry. I had imagined those words for years. In the old life they would have been a door, now they were only weather. I believe you are sorry, I said. Hope flashed across his face. I finished. I do not believe you are changed. The hope died, he whispered. What do I have to do? Nothing. Nora, you do not have to win me back. You do not have to perform regret. You do not have to explain Serena. You do not have to ask me to remember who you used to be. I remember. I am still leaving. He stood there empty-handed. For once I did not fill the silence. I got into Mara's car. As we drove away, Julian remained in the grey garage, smaller in the side mirror with every turn. The courthouse smelled like paper, coffee, and old decisions. I arrived early, not because I was nervous, though I was not. Because I wanted to see Julian, though I knew I would. I arrived early because I wanted a few minutes to sit on a wooden bench and understand that the end of my marriage would happen in a building where hundreds of endings happened every week. The world would not stop. That helped. Mara sat beside me, reading through the final agreement. It is clean, she said. Your premarital assets remain yours. Apartment deposit contribution acknowledged. Reimbursement schedule for documented family payments included. Mutual non-disparagement, no ongoing collateral support, no spousal support either direction, no spousal support. You waived pursuing it, he waived fighting over your trust. Given the rest, it is a strategic piece. I do not want his money. You are receiving reimbursement for money already spent. That feels different. It is. Across the hall, Julian arrived with Grant. He wore a dark suit and looked thinner. Patricia was not with him, neither was Serena. He saw me and stopped for a moment. Neither of us moved, then he walked over. Mara closed the folder but did not stand. May I speak to Nora? He asked. No private conversation, Mara said. He nodded, accepting it this time. Here then. I looked up. He held an envelope. I found this in my desk, he said. Mara's eyes narrowed. What is it? Julian handed it to her first. Good. He was learning procedure too late. Mara opened it. Inside was a photograph, our first apartment, Julian and me sitting on the floor because we had no couch yet. I wore his old sweatshirt. He held a slice of pizza. Like a trophy, we were laughing at something outside the frame. Mara passed it to me. I looked at the girl I had been. She looked tired and happy and completely unaware of how expensive love could become when one person paid in devotion and the other paid in promises. I kept it, Julian said, even after everything. I did not know what he wanted me to say, so I said the truth. So did I. His eyes lifted. I kept those years too. I said, that is why this hurts, not because they meant nothing, because they meant something and you used that meaning against me. He looked down. I know, no, I said gently. You know now. The courtroom door opened. Our case was called. The hearing itself was shorter than 6 years deserved. Names, dates, confirmation. The judge reviewed the agreement, asked whether we entered voluntarily, asked whether we understood the terms, asked whether the marriage was irretrievably broken. Irretrievably, a word that sounded dramatic until spoken in a room full of routine endings. Julian answered yes. I answered yes. My voice did not shake. The judge signed just like that. I was no longer Mrs. Pierce. I was Nora Hart again in law, not just in my own mouth. Julian stared at the papers as if expecting them to move outside the courtroom. Patricia waited after all. She stood near the elevators, clutching her purse. She looked older than she had 2 months ago. Her pearls were gone. Her cardigan was plain. For a second, I remembered bringing her soup after her surgery, sitting beside her. While Julian took a conference call in the hall, she approached slowly. Nora. Julian stiffened. Mother, not now. Patricia ignored him. I wanted to apologize. Mara shifted, but I lifted a hand. Patricia's eyes filled. I said cruel things. I let myself believe things that made it easier to take from you. That was wrong. It was the best apology she had ever given me. It still came after the money stopped. I accepted that complexity. Acceptance was not forgiveness. Thank you for saying that, I said. Hope trembled in her face. I did not feed it. I hope Julian helps you find a stable plan. The hope faded. She nodded once. I understand. I was not sure she did, but that was no longer my work. Claire sent a text later. I am sorry I liked Mom's post. I was scared and angry. You did not deserve that. I saved it. Then replied, thank you, nothing more. Not every apology needed a bridge. That evening, I went to Hart House alone. The ground floor had changed in small ways. Helen helped me find donated tables. Earl repaired a cabinet. The tenants upstairs brought down a lamp they did not need. Mara had connected me with a women's financial education nonprofit that needed evening space twice a month. On the front window, a temporary paper sign read, Hart House Community Ledger Nights, Bring your bills, bring your questions. Leave with copies. Helen said the name sounded too practical. I said practical had saved me. I was sorting folders when my phone buzzed. Julian, not a call, a message. I know I lost the right to ask anything from you, but I keep thinking about your one-word reply. Done. I thought you meant you were done arguing. I did not understand you meant you were done carrying me. I am sorry it took losing everything to see what you gave. I read it once, then I set the phone down. For a long time, I looked at the empty room. He had not lost everything, he had lost the things I had been holding up. There was a difference. A second message arrived. Can you please say something? My thumb hovered over the screen. There were so many things I could say. I could tell him about the nights I stayed awake balancing his mother's bills. I could tell him about Serena's scarf in my chair. I could tell him about the way his salary sentence had followed me into sleep. I could tell him I had loved him so hard I mistook exhaustion for loyalty. But he did not need more of my language, he had lived on it long enough. I typed one word, no, then I blocked his number. 6 months after the divorce, Harthouse smelled like coffee, copier, paper, and lemon oil from the floors. Earl insisted on polishing himself. The ground floor was no longer empty. On Monday nights, women came in with folders, envelopes, screenshots, questions they whispered at first and asked louder by the second visit. Some were married, some were divorced, some were caring for parents, adult children, partners, siblings. Some had never balanced a checkbook because someone told them not to worry their pretty heads. Some had signed papers they did not understand. We did not give legal advice unless Mara was there. We did give highlighters, lots of them. Helen ran a grant writing workshop in the back room. Earl taught pottery on Saturdays. The tenants upstairs complained about the noise, then started coming down for coffee. I still worked at the community center. I still made about $2,000 a month there. Harthouse did not make me rich. Not yet, maybe never, but I no longer measured my life by whether a man could brag about it at dinner. One Friday evening after a workshop on automatic transfers and shared accounts, I stayed late to lock up. A woman named Denise hugged me at the door. I cancelled the card. She said, her eyes shone. I smiled. How do you feel? Terrified. That counts. She laughed through tears and left. I stacked chairs slowly. My phone was quiet these days. Peace had a sound. It sounded like nothing buzzing on the table. Julian did not vanish from the world. Men like him rarely do. I heard updates through unavoidable channels. His firm reduced his role after the review. He sold investments to satisfy the capital requirement. Patricia moved into a smaller townhouse near Claire after Julian finally took over her finances and discovered how expensive resentment was. Serena left the firm before the investigation finished and appeared months later in photos with another man in another expensive room. I did not follow any of them, but sometimes news finds women who no longer search for it. At 8:20 p.m. as I turned off the lights in the back room, someone knocked on the front door. The glass reflected my own face first. Then his. Julian stood outside in a dark coat, hair damp from rain. For a moment, my body remembered before my mind did. The old quickening, the old need to prepare. Was he angry? Was he tired? Did he need food? Had something happened with his mother? Did I need to solve it? Then the moment passed. I walked to the door but did not unlock it. He lifted one hand. Please, he said through the glass. I pointed to the sign taped near the handle. Closed. His mouth moved. 5 minutes. I could have walked away. Maybe I should have, but I was not afraid of 5 minutes anymore. I unlocked the door, opened it halfway and stayed inside the threshold. What do you need? He looked past me into Harthouse, the tables, the folders, the coffee urn, the whiteboard still marked with 3 questions from the workshop. What is in my name? What can I access? What happens if I stop? His face tightened when he read the last one. You built this, he said. Yes, it suits you. I waited. Rain tapped softly behind him. He looked different, not poor, not destroyed, not dramatically ruined, just less surrounded by shine. His coat was expensive but older. His face had lines I did not remember. I am not here to ask you for anything financial, he said. Good. I am not here about my mother. Good. I am here because I wanted to say it once without lawyers, without pressure, without needing anything. I did not soften my face. Say it. He swallowed. I am sorry, not for the bank, not for the firm, not because Serena embarrassed me. I am sorry for the dinner, for the way I measured you, for making your care invisible and then calling you small, for letting my family take from you, for bringing another woman into the space you built, for thinking your silence meant I owned it. The words were good, late but good. I let them stand between us. Thank you, I said. His eyes searched mine, looking for a crack, a door, a thread. I gave him none. I am in therapy, he said. I hope it helps. I sold the apartment. That was practical. My mother asks about you. She should stop. He nodded, accepting the boundary with visible effort. Then he said the sentence I knew was coming. Do you ever think about us? Of course I did. Healing is not amnesia. I thought about the studio apartment, the pizza photo, the young man who cried in the kitchen, the woman I had been signing because love felt like a bridge and not a cliff. I thought about the restaurant too, about $2 million, about 2,000, about done. Yes, I said, hope lifted in his face. Before I finished, I think about us when women sit at those tables and tell me they do not know what they signed. I think about us when someone says he handles the money because he is better at it. I think about us when I hear a woman call exhaustion loyalty. His hope fell apart quietly. I was not cruel, I was clear. I loved you, Julian. I also left you. Both are true. He looked down. Is there any version of the future where we speak again? I thought of his message from the restaurant, don't contact me again. I thought of my reply, done. Then I looked at him through the half-open door of the building my grandparents left me. The building he once called sentimental and useless. The building now full of women learning to read the fine print of their own lives. No, I said. He closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. He nodded once. I understand. Maybe he did. Maybe he only understood the part that hurt him. Either way, it no longer required correction from me. I stepped back. Goodbye, Julian. Goodbye, Nora. I closed the door. This time I locked it. He stood outside for a few seconds. Then he turned and walked into the rain. I watched until he disappeared around the corner. Then I turned back to the room. One chair was crooked, so I straightened it. The coffee urn needed washing. Someone had left a pen under the table. Ordinary tasks, mine, because I chose them, not because someone had trained me to absorb his chaos. On the whiteboard, under what happens if I stop, Denise had written an answer. Before leaving, I find out what was only standing because I held it. I picked up the marker and added one more line. Then I learn I can stand without it. The next morning, Heart House opened at 9. At 9:03, 3 women came in together with a showbox full of bank statements. I made coffee. I handed out highlighters, and when my phone stayed silent in my pocket, I did not miss the sound.